What celebrities have you encountered that were either really nice or really horrible? Like us to read you more awesome Reddit topics? Just like and subscribe to our channel. I met Vin Diesel at a truck stop diner when I was a kid. It was like 4 in the morning and me, my grandpa and Vin and his friend were the only ones in the diner, and we ended up getting sat at the table next to them. Vin and a friend were getting ready to go on some fishing trip, which was made obvious by the clothes they were wearing. My grandpa struck up a conversation about fishing with him, completely oblivious to who he was. He was a really nice guy and apparently knew a great deal about fishing techniques. I was a bit geeked out and didn't say much or contribute to the conversation, but I spent the next hour of our road trip explaining to my grandpa who Vin Diesel was and why it was a huge deal we just met him. I bet for Vin it was probably refreshing to have a casual conversation with someone about a personal hobby that didn't center around his celebrity status. That guy does movies. Grandpa, SHH, did you remember what he said what type of bait is best for? Met Dave Chappelle a few years back. Long story short, a friend of a friend got me and 2 friends into an after party. We were sitting at the bar when his manager offered us some shots. We talked with his manager for a while. Then Dave sat down near us. Dave was kind of sitting by himself and he looks over at us and goes, "What's going on, fellas?" And we talked to him for about an hour. We thanked him for coming to our town, talked about music, sports, all kinds of stuff. Super cool dude. One of my favorite memories. Dude, to cement that Dave is a cool ass MF, my friends and I were at a Chicago show when he was supposed to film a special for HBO and it was on my actual birthday. The venue was pretty intimate and only had a few chairs surrounding the stage with everyone else standing. We got there early enough to be one of the first row standing. Right after the opening act he came out and immediately noticed us and asked if we were all Filipinos. Well, he definitely guessed right. He started talking about how we are his family and went right into the details about his family, the food, culture and his own family, like having a humorous conversation during his set. Pretty surreal. Anyways, after a killer show, everyone was filtering out when one of the producers stopped us and asked if we can be in some of the B-roll footage along with Cat Williams since he was also there checking out the show. Of course, we agreed and sat next to him. As soon as it was over, Dave was on stage smoking a joint and I told him it was my birthday that night. He asked what my name is. I said, Amir Waimwa. He then grabbed the microphone and with everyone else still around he said, "Today's Amir Waimwa's birthday and I'm buying shots for everyone." Got to do a shot with him. One of the best random birthday moments ever. What going on, fellas? I read that in his voice. It's impossible not to. My mom and sister met The Rock when he was still a wrestler. They had a couple car seats and tons of bags, having a hell of a time getting off the plane and people were waiting, and then this massive guy offered to carry some things for them and they happily took the help. He grabbed some bags and held a baby carrier with my niece in it and helped them off the plane and left. After people kept going up to them asking how they knew The Rock and they were very confused until someone explained who he was. I met John Candy on a plane when I was a little kid while traveling with my family. He was a big man. He had the whole row to himself in front of us with the armrest up between seats so he could be more comfortable. The stewardesses were blocking anyone from coming up and bothering him, even though they themselves were not exactly leaving him alone, what with talking to him constantly and laughing at his enjoyable banter the whole trip. At some point he got up to go to the bathroom. When he came back he looked at me, pretended to do a double take like he was surprised and said, "Hey, you're the quietest kid ever, don't you talk." The way he said it was so friendly that I just smiled and giggled. Then he had a pleasant conversation with my parents, who had been dying to talk to him the entire flight, but were too polite to bother him. Not even 2 weeks later we heard he had passed. Did he take his shoes and socks off? Dogs are barking. Ha! Actually I remember he had a very inexpensive, almost cheap-looking, cardigan sweater on. Had it been anyone other than John Candy, I don't think anyone would have paid this man any mind at all. We saw him one more time after disembarking the plane. There were 2 men waiting for him at the luggage pickup area, both impeccably dressed. They had hand-stitched logos on their blazers that said Hatteras Yachts. I guess Mr. Candy was there to buy a boat or something. Sad to think he likely never got a chance to enjoy it. "Hey, you're the quietest kid ever, don't you talk." I literally heard him say that in my head as I read it. Those eyes. I ran into Adam Sandler outside of a Planet Fitness in Brooklyn in early 2016. As I was leaving the Planet Fitness, it looked like he was walking in. We made eye contact, so I stopped and held the door for him. He got to the door and stopped right before he walked through. In one of those fake poses that little kids make when you tell them to freeze, I stood there holding the door, plenty confused. For about 5 seconds, we just stood there. Him, motionless, and I, standing there holding the door. Finally, he turned his head and said in the stereotypical Adam Sandler voice, "Ah, who we kidding? I'm not going in there." Giant grin on his face. We both laughed and then he continued down the street. Awesome? He was in my town in NY shooting something for Netflix a few years ago. When he was done for the day, he went down to the local park and started playing pickup games of basketball with people. I went to grad school at Pepperdine in Malibu, down the road from where he lives. Adam used to come and play pickup ball on campus pretty often. Nice guy for sure. I met him down in Nantucket one summer a few years ago. I had no money and so he bought me and my friends a pizza and shared it with us. Probably the greatest moment of my life. Where's the picture? You had to take a picture. He shook my hand before I went to pee. Then when I re-entered the comedy club, he asked me how it went. It was glorious. My mom spotted Robin Williams once and she went up to him and asked if she could get a quick photo. She didn't realize he was there in the middle or about to do something with the Make-A-Wish Foundation, so she waited until they were done around 20-30 minutes later, and then a bunch of the kids and people wanted photos with him. He made it a point to stick around and told his staff I think that woman wanted a photo and made sure she got it. Mom was thrilled. He was such a humble, nice dude. I was working in a little boutique store in Seattle with my girlfriend and it was a particularly slow day when all of a sudden Robin Williams walked through the door. He was the only one in the store and my girlfriend didn't know who he was. We left him alone and when he came up to purchase his things he started barking at my Boston Terrier in a cute way. It scared the crap out of my Boston Terrier and he started barking back at Robin. He was so genuine and nice and I really do remember how hairy his arms were. For some reason that really stuck out. He walked out the door and instantly was surrounded by a bunch of tourists trying to take pictures of him. He put his bags in the back of his Mini Cooper and drove off. He bought a little piece of artwork and 3 Goran Bros hats. Seems like a lovely man. He is missed. From what I can tell, the guy was as pure as the driven snow. Really a tragedy. The fact that he remembered her after doing the event and then singled her out when others were mobbing him speaks volumes. Must be hard keeping track of so many things going on like that. I met Paul Rudd on a flight from NY, sat next to him on the plane. My buddy leaned over and told me that he wanted to compliment him on the span shirt he wore when making Clueless, but he didn't want it to be weird. So his solution was to write him a note and slip it to him. LOL. So he does this, and Paul just gets this nervous look on his face. Opens the note and reads it. Starts cracking up laughing. Leaned over to us and said, "Best note ever." He then told us the whole story of the shirt. How he fought with the costume depth about it. Because it was the shirt he wore to set that day. We talked the whole flight. Dude was super cool. Oh, this makes me so happy. I saw his name and almost didn't read on, because I'd be so upset if he wasn't nice. So I have a fun Paul Rudd story. I worked at CVS at the time, and my manager had just eliminated smoke breaks. So I'm on edge and going nuts. Paul Rudd walks in and sees me. For reference, I am generally disheveled in appearance. I had a wizard beard braided down almost to my nuts, and I had worked overnight unloading the truck before popping on register. He looks at me and just goes, "Rough night." I laughed, nodded. I slurped at my coffee, which was more or less empty at this point. My boss comes out of the office to yell at me about something, and Paul drops what he's doing, runs to my counter, and rings the little bell to interrupt the boss. I run over and he has a single butterfinger on the counter. I ring him out, and he laughs. He says, "How long you been here?" Truthfully, I told him 10 hours. I sputter something about loving him and fundamentals of caring. He looks at my boss and says the best thing ever. I need my name to help me to my car with my purchase. My back hurts. Mind taking over for him. So I go outside. He bums a cigarette off me and bought me coffee, then wouldn't let me inside until I finished the whole cigarette and half my coffee. Boss came out to bitch. He laughs and says I still need his help loading my car. Honestly, it's actually probably the single best customer moment I've ever had in my time in retail. Dude's goddamn awesome. Holy shit, that's literally the best story I've ever heard about any celebrity. Just a moment of real humanity. Always been one of my favorite actors, and it's so nice to hear that I would be proud to call him a friend in real life. You too, of course, my dude. Thanks for sharing. Oh my god, Lucky. I would love to meet Paul Rudd. He just seems so friendly and easygoing. He was really chill, very laid back and nice. His family was really nice too. People came up asking for autographs and he just smiled and said sure. This one girl had him sign a book she had and he just laughed and signed it for her. He wasn't the author. I met the St. Bernard dog from Beethoven at Planet Hollywood when I was a kid. Seemed like a pretty nice dog in person. I hope you got to give him pets.